First mushroom scout of the season. So far, the highest soil temperature I'm finding is 44 degrees Fahrenheit. And we're going to start seeing a lot more mushroom or primordia development, which will then develop into mushrooms. Once we hit about 50 Fahrenheit, you'll start seeing a lot more mushroom species when the soil temperature is more in the range of 70 degrees, because they've had a couple of weeks to develop at that point. But I like to come out and scout the area, check different locations. In Utah, because of my latitude and the temperature here, I check the areas that are getting more sun. Later in the season, I'm going to check areas that get a lot less sun. And that allows me to optimize my time and hone in on different areas of higher humidity. Make sure that when you're walking around, you're very situationally aware. There are predators in some areas where I live. There are definitely bears and mountain lions. This is the time of year where they're hungry, and I am currently in their territory. So be aware, be careful, bring bear spray, and if you can, friends and dogs, and maybe, if you're allowed to, a weapon to protect yourself. Foghorns are really great too. But each of these things can make sure that your outdoor experiences are safe ones. So far today, I'm not actually seeing any fungal activity, including the huge mats of mycelium that we find in the spring out here in the Utah Canyonlands. It's a fascinating phenomenon that I don't find much literature on. Something I've been documenting over the years to try to present on, but it's ethereal. It's, according to Alan, that it exists so temporarily. Literally, when you touch it, it will disintegrate. So collecting enough of a sample of this mycelium is very difficult, but not seeing it is a sign that I'm not in the right spot at the right time. There's a bone. A predator probably ate something. I find the carcasses of deer and cattle out here. In Utah, the BLM allows cattle farmers to run their cattle through the canyons, decimating them as they go. And they're jerks. I don't like cows. They're sometimes very hostile, actually. And understandably, you know, you get a lot of the mares protecting their calves, so just don't ever approach animals if it's something that you don't need to do. Mushroom hunters, we spend a lot of time looking down. Make sure you glance up every now and then. Bears can be pretty sneaky, and mountain lions even more so. So if you live in the Rockies, do not risk your life for mushrooms, and be safe, especially at the time of year where we know that we're walking through their territory. All right, well, thanks everybody. Be safe out there in your mushroom hunting adventures. Please take a minute to like, share, subscribe, and tell all your friends. Have a great 2024 mushroom hunting season. More videos to come. This is one of my very favorite places in all of Utah. It's very special. For me, nostalgically, it holds a lot of very good memories that helped connect me to nature and got me started on the path of the scientist. It's definitely one of the places that contributed to me becoming a biologist and loving nature in places like these. And yeah, it's frosty, but it's still pretty. Very soon, this place will be very green and full of life. Okay, this is the last area I'm going to scout today. It's a pretty steep slope. I like going higher up. Looks pretty snowy. It actually just happened, so sometimes when you're walking through, you'll actually see mushrooms sticking up. I focus on morel mushrooms. They're delicious because they taste like steak, and they're fun because they're mysterious. It's kind of crazy for me to actually be here right now because it's pretty obvious that there has been a lot of erosion, which is really exciting. It means that the fungal mycelium has been disturbed, and also with the intermittent snowing, we've had somewhat consistent amounts of relative humidity in this area, and that means that we're likely to have enough time to develop mycelium into primordia, into ascocarps and basidiocarps, or mushrooms. So today, really, I'm just doing the first check around for this particular canyon of the season. Make sure that when you come out that you have decent boots so that you're not hurting yourself. The water is super cold. On that note, later this year, that water will rise a lot and be very, very fast and deafeningly loud, and you'll actually hear boulders blasting through it, clink, clank on the way down. It's very dangerous. Come up here with friends and the right equipment, water, the right clothing, layers. If you live in Utah, you learn to dress in layers. The temperature degree average change daily here is about 60 degrees Fahrenheit. So you can go from sweating to freezing within the same day. I love this canyon. It's amazing. Very, very special, unique place. I'm excited to see how the terrain transforms because of this wonderful moisture. The canyons of Utah, the canyon lands, are very special. It's a unique microclimate that a lot of people just aren't very aware of. Utah has a lot of different kinds of microclimates, different habitats because of our variable elevation, our variable weather, and the variable geochemical composition of our soils. In the forest, as you can see, it's dark. It's organic. It's not a desert here in this particular area. I mean, it's moist. You can feel it in the air. Beautiful. Take care of nature. It takes care of you. Okay. 39.7. To me, this means I want to see mushrooms here in about the next week or two. They're really not going to be mushrooms. They're going to be primordia, just developing. One thing you can do that I do all of the time is take some debris. For example, this is some perfect debris that I can pick up and move. And if I have a mushroom, I can just, cover it up. A lot of the fungi here, the morels especially, they really do blend in with the colors of this habitat because they're dark brown to light tan. I see a lot of the Morchella snyderi up higher, and then down closer to the rivers I find much more Americana, Morchella americana, the yellow morel, white morel. Utah has quite a few different species. I'm in the process of trying to document those different fungal species right now of Morchella. I'm also interested in the rest of the Morchellaceae order and family in general. It's just a very, very interesting chunk of the taxa in mycology. For me, it's been a good learning category and the primary focus of my mycological research outside of soil transformation and agriculture. It's also a great way for me to connect with my kids and do fun outdoor activities. Oh, I'm upsetting a bird over here. It's trying to lure me away from its nest because I'm a loud, clumsy human thromping through the woods, leaving tracks everywhere. And evidence of mushroom hunters. By the way, yeah, people will follow you into the mountains and on social media. So maybe be careful about posting your locations. That does happen. There's a lot of competition in the mushroom hunting world, and people are constantly trying to find each other's sources. I'm fortunate because I have so many, and I find so many every year, and I'm provided so many by the public that I don't have any reason to be selfish or greedy and hold on to that information. There are a couple of very unique sites which I'm a little bit more conservative of, and so it's just because there are very unique species that aren't very well documented there, and I'm trying to collect enough data on it for it to be statistically viable before I share it publicly. And perhaps they're all harvested by the very hungry mushroom hunters of the world, the foragers. Well, thank you for joining me today on my solitary Rocky Mountain excursion before the beginning of the 2024 Utah mushroom season. Really excited. This year I'll be presenting at, it's looking like, at least a dozen mycological conferences across the United States. And this will give me the opportunity to share my research that I've been conducting with my colleagues for many years. This is our 5th year of collecting data on morel mushrooms in Utah and the Rocky Mountains. We expect to probably find about 10,000 specimens this year. Thanks for joining. All right, here is Mushroom Hunting Guerrilla Warfare Tactics 1. I have people going to my sites every year that I bring them to, pilfering the mushrooms, the colonies, the populations that I show them. So, one of the techniques I developed over the years is hiding them. I found a bunch of primordia, beautiful little mushrooms all over the place. Here's a decent one, Morchella snyderi, and I like to hide them. So I take local debris, just cover them up a little, nothing too suspicious looking, and most hikers are gonna walk right by. They're not gonna see it, and the reason is because if I just wait a week, by the way, there's 15 right here, 2 more here that I've already concealed. If I wait 1 more week, they're going to be this size or bigger, okay? So if I keep waiting, I'll get some real monsters. I've had some that are, well, you know, much bigger than my hand. This is about a 2-inch Morchella. I'm probably gonna take him today because I know that people are out here looking for my research sites. Here's another little primordia that I'm gonna let develop a bit longer and come back and harvest it when it's much larger, because I think it's silly to come around these mountains and collect little baby mushrooms when you could just return in a week and they're literally like 40 times the size that they were when you plucked them. Also, you can disrupt their ability to reproduce and prevent future morels and other mushrooms by harvesting them too early, because you want the spores to be released. So consider hiding your mushrooms. Just spend a little bit of time to do it, because in the end, at the end of the year, you're going to harvest a lot more mushrooms that way. I would highly recommend this tactic to anybody who hunts mushrooms. Would you look what I found here? I taught this guerrilla mushroom hunting technique to other people last year, and they're already using it against me in the locations in which I taught them to do it. By the way, you're not doing a very good job if I found them and you missed one or more. So the right way to do this is to take excessive debris, okay? You're gonna kind of make it look like it just naturally fell, right? This really, it could have naturally fallen, for sure. That's like a real possibility. But what I want is just a little bit of leaves in here. There's actually like none where I am, but look, they're everywhere, right? April 7th, 2024. The morels are all over the mountains. Do not harvest these little babies. Just bury them and move on. There are big ones out here. Honestly, in a week, they're gonna be just so much bigger. Come back, bury them. Works better. Hi everybody. I am in the canyon lands of Utah again today. My very favorite place in the whole world. This area was recently trimmed up a little bit by the Bureau of Land Management, the Forest Service, and they came through and cut any of the previously burnt trees from previous years' fires and any that had died as well. And it added a lot of carbon and wood chips and pines to the soil. The result of this excessive amount of carbon has been a tremendous amount of different morel species. I believe that the ones that are popping up for the most part are Brunier, Morchella Brunier. I have definitely seen a lot of Tridentina, Schneideri, Americana, and probably other varieties. I've gone through and I've actually buried a bunch of them so that I can come back later when they're bigger. I found some very interesting red phenotypes here. And when the morels that I find are smaller than I would like them to be, which is at least 2 inches, I just leave them. I leave most of them early on and I scout around and I document how many I find in different areas. And then I try to come back and collect them, and actually most of the ones that I hide are still there when I come back, like almost all of them. So I try to be careful who I've taught this trick to, because people are starting to figure out how to actually find them. So I swap it up. I use different little markers that are distinctive to me, and I notate them in my notebook as I go. Sometimes I'll grab pieces of logs, pieces of bark like this, and then when I find a morel, I will document it in iNaturalist and also in my research notebook, and then I will hide it and I'll come back a week later. Typically they're about 20 times as big. Don't eat baby mushrooms. Don't be a baby mushroom murderer. It prevents the dispersal of spores, which contributes to future generations. And so if you harvest little baby mushrooms, there are going to be fewer mushrooms in that area the following year. You should definitely harvest them when they have released spores, not before. So that varies species to species. One way that you can tell, most spores will discolor the mushroom and darken it. Up, up, up. Make sure you bring around a garbage bag. I always hike with one because some of my friends encourage me to, and I really like it. So I remove the human waste as I go. Try to make nature better than it was when you found it. There's a lot of people who don't. Makes it a better place for sure. So this area, I've documented about 150 morel mushrooms today. I only collected about 9 of them. This is really a scouting mission here in Utah. They come in flushes and waves, and we get a variety of different species. I hypothesize that we have about 12 to 15 species here in Utah. People call them blacks and blondes, but really within them, there are likely 5 or 6 species apiece within the black morels and the blonde morels. They definitely have different morphology, different shapes in their grooves. I just came through a bit of a dry spot out of one of the areas where I had just documented a bunch of mushrooms. So I do anticipate to come upon quite a few more. This particular canyon, I have found about 5 or 6 different species. Interestingly, when we did the molecular genetic analysis, it failed. And we believe that it's because we freeze-dried all of the specimens. They look fantastic when you freeze-dry them. But apparently, according to some literature that we found, the Morchella, they probably have a thin nuclear membrane in their nucleus, and so that may make it highly susceptible to the process of freeze drying. And because of that, every one of the different types of molecular genetic analyses techniques that we use actually failed, which, even though, you know, that sucks, it's really interesting also. And recently up here, there's been a lot of construction. So there's a road that broke, and I'm really hoping that they don't fix that road, because I've been going across it to find giant troves of mushrooms that other people don't have easy physical access to. If you want to find a bunch of morel mushrooms, you need to go to where it is very difficult for other people to get to. And generally, that is my destination. I try to go to the places where I think that they're going to be, but also in places where I know that it's really difficult for other people to get to. I have a lot of competition, so generally when I'm conducting research, we don't really include the data from publicly available places, because it's very possible that that data is corrupted or not as accurate as our other data pools, where not as many people have gone, and so that data pool hasn't been corrupted. And so I go far out of my way to try to get to sites where I know that other people haven't gone, or at least there's a much lower likelihood, lower percentage that people have gone there. And this really helps a lot with just making sure that our data is clean and good. So, all right, nothing to see here. I'll start another video when I find some. Talk to you soon.